Hi, and welcome to Visibility Unlimited and Visibility Unlimited Spotlight. I'm Leslie Short, your host and the owner of the Cavu Group. As always, I have a great guest today, Clara Hess, and we're going to be speaking about employee retention, why do employees stay? Why do they go? In full disclosure, Clara and I we are working on a project together and started having this conversation in the middle of the work that we were doing. And I was like, this is the perfect time to have this conversation. Clara, welcome to Visibility Unlimited.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So in the middle of us working, we're just like, what are employees thinking now? What are employers thinking? There's so much going on. And the years of getting the corner office and the gold watch and staying somewhere forever just because is gone. So why do employees leave? Or why do they stay?
Yeah. I think it is so personal, and you're right. Career paths have changed a lot in the past couple of decades. And now we see that people have a lot of options and choices. So no longer are you supposed to start somewhere and stay there for your whole career. There's this concept of the boundaryless career, the protein career, and you kind of make it what you want it. And you're not always trying to climb the ladder, but it's more of a playground, and your interests change, your personal needs change, and you see new opportunities. And so you take them, you become self-employed, you get a side gig, you switch things up a little bit when your life changes. And so people have a lot of options, and they tend to take them when they're able to.
And that is so true because years ago, there were career paths, and that's what they were called. And that's what you were either pushed in, elected to go in, and that was it. Now we're clear that some people can quit a job and do a store on Etsy or do a TikTok video and something goes viral and boom, they have a new career. But let's speak about, and from your work and your research in the past and how, well, one, tell people what you do as a consultant and how you look at employees and retention and as we're working on together culture.
Yeah. So I have a PhD in organizational psychology. And when I was studying this in graduate school, I was really interested in self-efficacy and job satisfaction and the interplay of those two kind of concepts and how that led people to think about staying or leaving. So my research was actually on teachers, and thinking about self-efficacy. So how good do you think you are at your job? Are you confident in your abilities? So someone who might be really confident in their abilities as a teacher or their chosen career and really happy with their job satisfaction is high, they're more likely to stay. But if you're very confident in your career and dissatisfied with the workplace around you, are you more likely to stay in teaching and just find a new place to do that career? Or are you thinking about putting it all together? So employees that had low self-efficacy, they thought, well, I'm not very good at this. I'm not getting feedback that I'm good at it, and I don't like it. We're actually more likely to quit the whole profession versus just looking for a new place to do that. And so that's where my interest really started in thinking about quitting a job is never just one thing. Staying at a job is never just one thing.
Right.
So the interplay of all of these connected ideas and needs that an employer and employee has.
So, it's costly to keep hiring people. Some employees go, well, if you don't like it, just go. And it's easy to say that when you're looking at the bottom line all the time. Each time you onboard, an employee leaves and you have to onboard a new one, it costs money, whether it's the insurance, whether it's equipment, just everything throughout the board. So what's the cost of an employee can say, I'm good, I can figure out health insurance, for a time. What do you think about the cost versus morale?
Yeah, there's the financial cost to the organization of replacing that person, recruiting someone new. There's also the process, it's called process loss cost. So all the work that's not getting done while that person is gone and you're trying to find and onboard the new person. You might have someone else who can pick up some of that load, but it was likely they were doing a full-time job before. So there's some of
Sure.
that work is like slippage coming through. And then there's the cost of morale, right? The remaining employees are starting to wonder, well, 3 people just left in the past quarter. Is there something I'm missing? Should I look at leaving? And now I'm left with all this additional work or onboarding new colleagues. So there's the financial cost, there's also the morale cost, and then the cost of the work that's just not happening.
Right. Then we have culture, our favorite buzzword around, right? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's not pizza, it's not an outing, it's not team building day. It's really the foundation of any company.
Yeah.
And that I think is lacking sometimes when people really think, why do people stay or go? What is the culture you're building? And as we both know, everyone doesn't always want to look at the full picture of culture. They want to focus in on pockets of culture. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you're getting at like an excellent point. It's culture isn't one thing. Um, there's employee satisfaction kind of with the benefits, right? And the employee experience. There's things about communication and decision making and how decisions are made, and that's part of culture. And they're also interwoven. And so when you think about culture and either why people stay or why people go, it's really complex. Again, people might need the job and not be able to leave, even if it's a pretty negative culture. And so it's really hard to piece apart that. And I think people that are in the water can tell you
Right.
water's warm, jump right in, or it's a little too hot here or cold. And they might even be able to tell you like what are some of the things that are going on to lead them that way. But when you think about an employee's experience, even with one specific manager, could be so positive in a negative culture, or it could be so negative in an otherwise positive culture. So you have to think about what can the organization do to set expectations, to hold standards, to have clear policies in place that help kind of bound the culture. Like we are not going to do this and we are going to do this. But even within those bounds, there's so much that, if you have a toxic colleague next to you, it makes it really hard, kind of regardless of what the policies are. There's only so much the policies can do. It's about the people that are around you.
Well, that's what they always say. People don't leave jobs, they leave people,
Yep.
you know?
Usually
And
your manager. Yeah.
exactly, or your manager's manager, somewhere in there, it's the people that you get disgusted with. So there's also this thing called the 3R, employee retention: respect, recognition, and reward. We all know that the word respect can mean so many things to different people. So how a company does that, I'm going to go back to culture. I don't know what your thoughts on that. And in recognition, man, people just want to know they're doing a good job. But with that, you pat me on the back so many times. Where's my raise? Where's
Yeah.
my upskilling? Where are those things? So, in ways that you have seen recognition within companies, what are some maybe that aren't so obvious to everyone?
Great question. I think the most thing is that it's authentic. I've seen some organizations try to have an employee of the month or some kind of award, and it comes out of nowhere. And so it just seems really authentic, and then there's nothing with it. Or there might be a small bonus. But just having no culture around like this award means something. Versus I see my kids' swim school has an employee of the month, and it seems to actually matter. And I don't know what's underneath that, if they get extra, money, but they get a lot of public praise. And it's actually you get nominated by a parent or a student. And so it's not just the organization saying pat on the back.
Right.
It's authentic, right? Someone here who's experienced your performance says that it's exceptional, and we're acknowledging that.
I like that. Someone here has experienced your performance.
Yeah.
I love that because I don't think we look at what we do as an experience. I think we look at what we do as what we have to get done.
Yeah. And in almost every role, someone is experiencing your performance, whether you're in a client-facing role or a customer-facing role. But eventually someone's going to experience what you did. And so to get that feedback that the work you do matters, it had a positive impact on someone.
Right.
So that matters a lot, And I think when you talk about the 3 Rs, what comes up for me is this idea of like an individual centric retention approach. And so no matter how many different, policies you have in place or reward programs, you need to make sure that it's meeting people where their needs are, right? So
The story of life, meet people where they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have to know like that, do people actually want this type of reward or award, I've worked at and consulted with companies that, say we have Friday off all of a sudden. And it's like, well, that's a great reward, but like I didn't have enough advance notice to like use that time off.
Right.
And so just knowing like what matters to your people, being in conversation with them, doing the right surveys and right metrics. I'm seeing how many people use that time off, or did people actually just stay at work late and try to get work done? Like what's again the culture there? The unspoken rules, I think really matter.
So that's great. So that reward needs to make sense. Always say, make it make sense.
Yeah.
You reward me 50 steaks, but I'm a vegetarian. Well, that's great. Someone else is going to get that reward, and I'm happy to receive the, I guess, somewhat of recognition, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so when we go through handbooks, which I love to do, I love to tear them apart and go, does this make sense? Who did you write this for? For legal purposes or for employees to actually be able to use this service? Because we see so much of that where people love to give these 90-page handbooks that they know no one reads. And they have but no, we have this, Leslie, and we have this, and we have this. No one remembers it's in the handbook. No one knows who to go to, even
Yeah.
sometime in HR, to get through to figure out what that policy and procedure is and how they use it. So how do you retain employees by just giving them a 96-page handbook and saying, good luck with that? You don't.
It has to come to life. So whatever you put on that paper, you have to live into as an organization. You have to do it. So if there's, a policy around work-life balance, making sure people are taking time off, you need to have your managers have those conversations at least quarterly. I've been looking at your time off, like you're not taking the time off that you might need to rest and recover. Are you? Like, are you like making sure that people, without assuming too much about what they're doing, but making sure people know you have this benefit, you can take it. It's allowed here. It's encouraged. Like we want you to rest and recover, and make sure that, you're showing up at work and you're showing up for yourself in the right ways that you need to.
All right. And then I always say the mission and vision need to come off the walls and walk the halls. You
Yes.
have to live up to it. And like you said, it has to be authentic. So there's a company right now that I'm just going to throw it out there. Costco. Costco's getting heat. One side for keeping the DEI policies, for another side for not keeping it. What they said is whatever. Here's what we're going to do. We're also going to raise the hourly rate of our employees. And if you've seen what's happened in the last couple of weeks, the lines for new membership and all kinds of stuff has gone out through the parking lot.
Yeah.
So now all these people have all this extra work, but they've also just genuinely been rewarded to come. And that I would hope that they know at some point it's going to level out and there's a balance. But that $30 raise that they just received is really because of the work that they're doing. And so many people said I expected them to be annoyed by the time I got up to the line. And what I found was someone that was genuinely happy to be working and to see the amount of people coming in and was still helpful. That says a lot for a
It
company.
does. And thinking about like what's under there, they know what their organization stands for.
Mhm.
And what the organization is saying externally is matching what's happening internally, right? So again, it's that authenticity and there's a level of trust there. You said X and you're doing X, so I can trust you. I'm not confused that you're saying one thing and doing another thing. I'm not trying to spend all my time guessing what's going to happen. It's transparent and it's clear. And again, you're being rewarded and you're seeing your impact on the customers around you.
Absolutely. And I think that's why with one of the other companies that let go of what no one thought was an initiative, but thought was grounded within them, and people keep going, why are they being targeted? No pun intended. And I think it's because people had invested in them. People thought this is who they were inside and outside. But when push came to shove, and this is many companies, they didn't do that. They didn't stand up for what we thought they believed in. And to change so quickly is, I think, why so many people are shocked and surprised and upset. And
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to speak to the few people that I know internally, but I really wonder, what do you feel like when you get that notice and we've just done a full flip from things you had me invest in
Yeah.
for so long? And so and there's a difference that companies change, right? Their focus change. That's called growth. That's how you continue to grow. You build licenses, you build these things. But it comes back to communication as well. And once a decision is made from high up, how do you communicate that to everyone that still holds to your values?
Yeah, and part of that is an exercise in communications, and part of it is thinking about, again, that employee experience, like the experience of like, oh, this big thing just changed. And then like, what does that mean for me? I was invested in this. Can I shift my investment? Um, I thought this place was different. I thought this was a place I could fit in. Personally, like, what does this mean for me now? Are they going to start changing other things that are going to impact my pay, my family, my identity? Um, and that's when people start wondering, is this the place for me? Am I embedded here? I think this is where, when you and I were talking, I'm just fascinated by this idea of job embeddedness, right? And how people and organizations kind of interweave together, and become, a part of each other. And there are ways that organizations can increase job embeddedness. And there's also ways that they can decrease job embeddedness. So job embeddedness is a concept of why employees stay in their current positions and a couple different factors about their jobs, their organizations, and the communities. And this thing that you're just talking about, it's a major change in what the community stands for. And so there are ways to increase the links. So these are either formal or informal connections that employees have within the organization or community. So relationships with colleagues and supervisors, involvement in work teams, participation in activities. So when different affinity groups or ERGs or initiatives are being canceled, there's links that are being removed there that untether people. The second component of job embeddedness is fit. So the kind of perceived compatibility between the employee and their job or organization. So the alignment of personal values is part of fit. The match between the job expectations and the job requirements and individual skills is part of fit. Um, and then sacrifice is the third big component. So sacrifice is what an employee might lose if they give up their job. So they might lose benefits, right? Can I risk losing healthcare? Can I get healthcare somewhere else
Right.
affordably? Perks, opportunities for advancement, feeling comfortable. So what you're talking about is really some of these practices that are changing in businesses and really impact how embedded someone might feel with their fit, their links to the community, and then that sacrifice. Well, this project that I was, either a part of or very much supportive of is now gone. So what's keeping me here? Both as a customer, right? Like I was really involved and invested, I was really invested in this product line, and now it's just disappeared, or they seem to not be investing. So I need to find that product line somewhere else. Can I find that locally?
And that is what's happening right now. And I don't think companies have realized how much people have invested their personal time, energy, money as a consumer, let alone being internal and being proud of being somewhere that was open to um, allowing people to be who they are internally and externally, and to shut that internally, announce it externally, and expect the consumer to sit back and go, oh, okay, we're flip with you. No, that's not how that works. And I think a lot of them have misjudged the power of what I say is, regardless of who you are, green crosses the register, and
Mhm.
or plastic and or phone tap, whatever we are doing nowadays. And that makes a difference. And that effect will affect sales, which will affect internal, which will not only be the bottom line for leadership, the board, but it will be for the employees that now will be pushed to sell harder, to sell more, to stay longer hours, that you don't have that Saturday off anymore, that you don't have this. That's where it falls. And it's
Yeah,
just,
and there might be a gap in when people actually see that, right? It takes some time for people to think about quitting, right? Your intention to quit and then actually starting to apply for jobs and then actually get a job and then start it. So there's a lag there. And the same with the consumer side, right? It might take you a little bit of time to figure out, well, I'm not getting this product here anymore, but where am I going to get it? I need to cancel my auto subscriptions. I need to find a new website. I need to make sure like I'm logged in, right? But people currently, they still have choices and they're making those choices.
so let's do a small switch. And speaking about learning,
Mm.
upscaling, development, how much of that do you think retains employees and for how long?
Yeah. Again, I think it depends on the individual and what they're looking for out of their job, right? Is it just a job? Is it a career? Is it a calling? And the more that people feel that it's not just a job, but it's a career and a calling, they want that growth. So it comes back to the self-efficacy. Like I feel like I'm good at my job and I can get better. For so many years of our, childhood, we're getting constant feedback from teachers, from coaches, you're getting certificates, you know, um, trophies, grades, through college. And then at work, you need a lot of adults need that feedback to like, I know that I'm doing a good job. And part of that feedback is I feel like I'm growing, I'm learning. And it benefits the organization because they're getting more out of the employee once they're invested in and growing. And then the employee also learns a lot, learns new skills, can offer more back to the organization. So I think it's incredibly important. And that, again, is part of that job embeddedness. If you feel that you're learning, you're getting better at your job, you're expanding your skill set, you're much less likely to leave that job. Even though some employers might think, oh, if I train them too much, you're gonna, be more marketable
Exactly.
somewhere else.
Right.
But if there's no end, just keep training them, just keep giving them more opportunities, let them grow. There's
And be
plenty.
decent.
Yeah.
Be decent. Communicate, give benefits, have the opportunities. Don't just train me and then the opportunities aren't there. Because I've seen that happen as well. Where here you can take these courses and you do all this stuff and keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. Oh, but we don't have a position for you. Oh,
Yeah.
yet you're still not qualified. So it keeps going back to the fact of if you are not willing to be proactive, authentic, communicate, invest in your employees in a way that is what am I getting from them, but how can I invest in them to invest in us as a company is the way that I always look at it. Uh, Everyone is a transaction. I show up, I get my check, I go home, you get the work done. But how transactional do you make it is what it really comes down to.
Yeah, it's like a mutually beneficial circle, and it could be a really wink link, right? Like I show up, I get my work done, you pay me, you get the work. The stronger you can make those connections, the richer you can make that relationship. You show up, I invest in you, you get more work done, you feel really good at that, you get the rewards, you grow. We can now take advantage of your growth and your learning for a new role or new opportunities. It's again, like I don't want to keep going back to job embeddedness, but that circle gets like thicker and thicker and richer and tighter, and it's harder for the employee to leave, and it'll be more painful when they do for the organization. But while that relationship is there, it's stronger and deeper, and it's more mutually beneficial.
Wonderful. So if you could tell an employer, we tell them a lot, that's what we do, both of us. You could tell them the top maybe two or three things when it comes to retention of their employees. What would it be?
I think the first would be to listen and ask questions of your employees and listen. What is keeping you here? What could we do better at? And don't just ask in an employee survey, ask in employee surveys, but have your managers ask in just like their weekly meetings and their one-on-one check-ins and your skip levels. Learn what people are really excited about. What are the initiatives, the programs, and what are people just disinterested in? So I think first is listen. And then second would be try things out and experiment. You don't have to launch it to everyone at the same time or put it in your handbook and like concretize it. Try it in a small team, try it out in one location, get feedback immediately and see what people like. And so it goes hand in hand with listening, but be willing to experiment on something and let people know, we're going to try this new benefit out. We're not sure if it's going to stick around, but let's see if it works out and what we can learn from it.
Right. That's great. And from the employer or the employee, I should say, what should they be looking for? What should they ask? Realistically ask.
Yeah, I'm always so conflicted with the question, you're supposed to ask about culture in the interview because you're never going to get the real answer or the answer that helps you.
Oh, I absolutely disagree with that. I absolutely believe it should.
Really?
Oh, I 100% ask, what is your culture? What is the culture that you build here? What is it about the culture you enjoy personally? I'm going to ask, and if you can't answer me, that is problematic. And when I interview people, when I work with other companies for CEO positions or HR positions, I always ask, what is the culture you're looking for? Because this is what we don't speak about. And this is where we mismatch because we can be brilliant on paper. We know that we've seen some brilliant resumes. That doesn't mean just because that's your dream job, that's where you need to be.
Yeah. Interesting. I feel like I just never get the real answer. And so I think instead of asking the question, you can ask the question, what is your culture here? But I think it's looking and listening to what's not said. When you ask that in an in-person interview, see who looks at who first to see, can we tell her, right? Like, can we say this? Who's going to answer this question? Is it the most senior person that's answering the question? But I think it's, again, it's the experience you have during the process of interviewing, like how warm and friendly are their emails? Do they respect your time and show up to interviews on time? Does their walk match their talk, right? Does like what they're saying about this job come through in the questions they're asking you, or does it seem all over the place? So I think it's really high like emotional intelligence and EQ to be looking for all these signs and signals when you're asking those types of questions to see what's really happening.
And I always say, if you're going in person, the moment you walk in, you should be paying attention.
Yes.
How you're greeted at reception, where they have you sit, whether you're offered water or something, and then pay attention how people are moving around or not moving around. I went into a interview, and we're talking 10,000 years ago, so I haven't interviewed in so long, but I just remember going into this office and going, I don't care what they offer me, I'll never take this job. It was so stale, and the walls were blank, and it was a high fashion magazine, and I was so thrown back that this is where people's cubicles weren't even like decorated or personalized, or there was no music there. I was like, okay, they can't offer me enough unless they offer me enough to come in and consult and change this spirit, which that's my spirit. Clearly the people working here, this works for them.
Yeah, it's a mismatch.
Is mismatched. So you also have to know, and you have to know when someone tells you to, could you settle down, which is what someone said to me for a very large job. And it was the only one time that I thought I would go in-house again. And we're nervous that you are going to be a big spirit. And I said, did you not interview with me? That was the hold back spirit. So if you think that that's too much,
Yeah.
thank you, no, thank you. So you also have to know who you are and don't be scared to say no if you're in an interview and things don't feel right. And like you said, do your research.
Yeah. And it goes both ways when you walk into that office. How do you greet the receptionist? Are you kind, respectful?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I know someone that did not get a job because she was way too comfortable.
hmm.
She started asking the way she was asking about things, it was a little off. And she just was like, went into the kitchen and started getting things from the kitchen. We were just like, wait, you were great on the first interview, not on the second. And if you're on, online and there's more than one person, and you're right, if you're asking the culture, who's going to respond to that? How do they respond? Do they show up? Are they eating during the interview? And that's on both sides. There's so many things that give you the hint of what's to come,
Yeah.
or what's come. So be aware. What else? Let's on our ending of our conversation. Just what other some points or tips that people should know or think about?
Yeah. So I think coming back to that job embeddedness, as you think about taking a new job, as you're thinking about leaving, make sure you're looking at the whole picture. So you might be really frustrated with your manager, but need some stability in your income or from your healthcare benefits. You might really like your manager, but not like a big decision that's being made. So think about how much that decision the organization is making impacts your alignment between your personal values and the culture. What can you live with? How will this change things like your commute? You know, so all the different parts of your job, it's so multifaceted, and so don't make snap decisions. Taking a job or leaving a job, and think about the relationships with your colleagues. What of that can you take with you if you leave the job? You can maintain some of those relationships, those connections with the community. But think about, again, like what's the sacrifice that you're going to be having, and what of that is worthwhile sacrifice? What can you disrupt to benefit more greatly on something else? So it's never easy to build an amazing culture, to maintain an amazing culture, to find one as an employee, and as an employee, be part of one and contribute to that. So
That's great. Thank you, Clara. I really think this is timely conversation with so much going on in the world and people looking to see what is next. Employees don't know whether they're letting people go, keeping people. And I think this will be extremely helpful for those that are listening and watching. So I appreciate you joining me today.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Where can people find you?
Clara Hess Consulting right now can be found on LinkedIn. You can find me at Clara Hess, and look forward to possibly engaging with you in the future.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure in the newsletter there is a link to your LinkedIn so that people can find you. I appreciate you again. As always, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. You've been listening and watching Visibility Unlimited and the video portion, Visibility Unlimited Spotlight. I'm Leslie Short again. I look forward to seeing you and speaking to you again. Take care, everyone. Bye.